making things worse. So if you are starting to think, man, every conversation that I have is just starting to turn into a landmine. Just, it's just everything's exploding with my partner. And now I just feel safer just being quiet. Then this video is for you. I am Miri Masip, Commander Mimi on social media, and I teach couples how to fight smarter, not harder. Now, this video I'm just going to give you a simple shift that you can use to get your message across without sounding too aggressive or just weak. So most women think that they have to say the right words, and sometimes that's where they get caught up. Like, how do I say this? And actually, the real shift starts even before we open our mouths. So it's classic, right? When there is a conflict, we are very good able to see what's the problem with them, what they need to fix, what they're doing wrong. They're being too aggressive, they're yelling, they are using you statements, they and then we get into the judgments of like they shouldn't be doing this, or I shouldn't have to explain myself, or we want to express our truth, but for you still your truth is, well, they're being selfish, well, obviously this is wrong, and that is not your truth. That is your perception of things. That's your judgment of things. And that's when we run into trouble. And usually when I start giving these tools to my clients, they start having trouble because they realize, oh, so this is a judgment. I'm trying to say, you're being aggressive, and they're starting to see the difference between assertive and aggressive communication, and they see it in their partners, and they want to label it as this is wrong, this is not helpful, just stop that. So, and that's also not helpful. Why? We have to start by naming our truth, and your truth is what you feel, not what you think, right? What you feel and what you need in that moment. That's like really not going to change. You felt what you felt, and you have human needs. Now, sometimes we run into the mistakes of saying, okay, what I need is for you to shut up. And that's not a human need, right? You need peace. What do you need as a human to thrive, to feel fulfilled in this relationship? All humans need the same stuff: love, respect, peace. Now, we get it in different ways. And yeah, some definitions of what respect is looks very different to the other person. So we have to be specific sometimes on how that looks for us. That doesn't mean they have to give it to us, but that I do have a need for respect. And for me, that means just speaking to each other with a calm voice and not labeling each other, and instead telling each other what we need to feel at peace, to feel that our dignity is being respected. Again, double grouse, but whatever. So, anyways, when we want to, I've seen some of my clients some of them at the beginning start having issues because they want to say you, and they don't know how to word it as I statements. And that's the very first quick fix I can give you. When you want to say, you're yelling, you're doing this, I need peace, I need quiet, I need to have this conversation more calmly so we can solve this more respectfully, please. I just need calm and quiet, please. And we can be kind, we can be firm. It doesn't have to be weak, right? If they don't want to do it, that's fine. Okay. Okay. I respect that. It's also, if we're asking for respect, we also respect their decisions, even if it's not what we wanted, right? So I respect that. I just need this peace. I need to speak calmly. Therefore, I'll step away until we can speak calmly. And see, you don't have to be aggressive. You don't have to impose your vision on another person. You just know that that's what you need, and you will honor that. So before you even speak your mind, the first shift is shifting into from you statements into I need, I feel, I want. That's the first shift. And not reversing it, because that's another mistake that I see pretty often. I feel that you're over exaggerating. That's not a feeling. That's your perception. That's your judgment on how the other person is behaving. So instead of naming what the other person is doing, is naming what you need and not reversing it. No, I feel that you, anything. If, let's say, one some of my clients say, okay, but how do I communicate that I think they're being really selfish right now? Well, but you thinking that they're being selfish, that speaks of you having a need for help in this area. I i i need to feel supported, and for me that looks like doing this. Would you be willing? There comes the invitation. Would you be willing to help me like this? Would you be open to problem solve like this? And that's, now you're pointing at yourself, at what you need, at what you feel, and what you would really like. And then you're extending your hand and asking and inviting them to join those dynamics with you. So before you even speak your mind, before you even say anything, you need to know what that looks for you, what you need, not what you don't need, not what you want to stop. It's usually more common for you to know out of the get-go, I don't want this in my life. Well, if we tell them I don't want this, sometimes people are like, Well, what do I do?" And that's just a wall. That's just putting a wall. I don't want this. Stop doing this. And they don't know what to do with that. And that's very limiting. That's not inviting. That doesn't build connection. So you're either fighting, you're either speaking fight language, or you're speaking cooperation, you're speaking connection. So that's where I want that shift to be. If you know what you don't want, if you know, if you can identify you are doing this, that means that's bothering you. That doesn't mean you don't have to shield yourself and saying, everybody thinks this is normal and this is the way it should be, and this is the way that bothers you. And that's enough for you to honor that you have a specific need, a need for peace. That's a universal human need, but maybe you need a little bit more than other people, or for you it looks a little bit different than for other people. So that's what it means to speak our truth. So there's water in my ceiling and the canopy. So that's what it means, your truth. So just be really careful to know if it's your truth or you're really speaking about your judgment. There's a difference there. So first step, switching into I statements, switching into looking at what they're doing. And that is a reflection of what you need, what you feel, and what you want. So it's a lot easier instead of giving them the wall and saying, I don't want this. They're like, okay. But if you tell them, I want this type of relationship, this is my ideal. And that doesn't mean that you're imposing, you have to do this. You're saying, this is a relationship that I would love to have. Would you be open and willing to try this with me? And see if that is a relationship that they would also like to try. So that gives them a map to the relationship, to the new relationship dynamics that you would like to make a habit, because all of this is a habit. And if you're having a hard time speaking from your heart, speaking from with I statements, if you're having a hard time doing that, then that just means it's your habit. That's the habit that's how you grew up, maybe. That's how people spoke around you. Just saying, you're doing this, you're doing that, you need to. And it's hard to get out of that when that's your first reaction. So that is it. This is just building new habits of speaking that don't make things worse. Now, I'm not going to promise you that by saying, I feel a little hurt by this, and I would really like to speak to each other with words of kindness. I really don't like using judgments or name calling. So I want to have this conversation. I just really, really would like to have it in respectful terms. No, I'm not going to promise you that even if you're very, very assertive and you're kind and firm and you make invitations, that they're going to be like, oh my gosh, yes, for sure. We're not doing this to control the outcome. We're doing this to make it more so that we become the person that we want to be, because that's who I want to be. I want to be kind and firm. I want to be assertive. I want to really communicate my boundaries and respect other people's boundaries, and see if that's the type of relationship they would like to have as well. Because if they don't, then they're not the person for me, right? So I do that because that's the person who I want to be. I want to see if that person is wanting to jump on board and have a life with me, the type of life that I want to have, and respect that maybe they don't. So maybe they're better off somewhere else, right? So I'm doing that because of that. Not and it's not really to control the outcome, it's just to see if they would like to make it more likely. If this is a life dream, the ideal life and dynamics that I would love to have, then I have to become a person. Then my habits, everything that I say, everything that I do has to make it more likely, more, yeah, more likely that I can achieve those dynamics. So I'm changing myself, not when it's convenient, not depending on the person. What I'm going to change, if it's depending on the person, is, if one person speaks French and the other person speaks English, then I'm going to have to change depending on the person. And sometimes, right? So sometimes that means, like, if some person has a different love language, right? They appreciate more gifts rather than words. Okay, then how can I show that I appreciate this person? Then I'm going to change my behavior, but not because I am trying to control the outcome, but because I want to show appreciation. So I know this person speaks French, speaks gifts rather than words. So then I'm going to give them a gift, a thoughtful gift rather than more words. I still like to say words, so that's what I'm going to do, right? Because, but I know that maybe they're uncomfortable, so I'm going to change in that manner. But see, that's not manipulation. That's changing a little bit depending on the person, just to make it so that I can be more of myself, that I can achieve the outcome that I want. Not the I want to be a person that shows appreciation. I want to be a person that's kind. So that's why it's very important that even before we do all those things, we know the person that we want to be, what we want to show, that we know the type of lifestyle that we want to achieve, so that we can change ourselves, so that we can make it consistently. We change ourselves, not depending on the situation, but more consistently, so that we can achieve that more likely, and that we know what type of relationship dynamics we want to have. And therefore, I'm going to communicate my boundaries, I'm going to communicate what I like and make it more likely. More likely. That doesn't mean that me, by speaking kindly and firmly, encouraging other people to join me in the dynamics that I want, and encouraging them to also speak assertively, respectfully, kindly, and openly to other people, that they're going to want to cooperate. They might not. No matter what I do, they might not. And that's when people get a little bit into, like, but if I am assertive, if I invite them and they don't want to, and I just don't know what to do to get them to change. That's not assertive communication. We're not trying to change anybody. The only person that you have power and command of is yourself. So that's what this practice is about. It's knowing the person you want to be, and that you align your thoughts and your behaviors with your values, and you can live a life that's more according to your values. So that's why, even before we speak, we have to know, what do I value more? What do I need? And how do we know? We do know based on feelings. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to act on your feelings. That just means that if I have a feeling and this is hell of uncomfortable for me, now I have information. That doesn't mean that we have to act on our urges. I have to stop this right now. It's an urge. So the way that I compare it is, the analogy that I like to use is, if I get a mosquito bite and it starts itchy and I want to scratch it, that's the urge. And if you scratch it, then it's going to make things worse, right? So when you have a feeling, that comes with an urge. If I get angry, I want to just attack. If I get sad, I just want to forget about it and withdraw. But that doesn't mean that's going to be more constructive. So we have to realize, okay, I'm feeling scratchy. So I got to look at it and see what it is, evaluate it, and then realize what's more constructive. Okay, I'm gonna go get a lotion and put it on. Same with feelings. So if I feel disgusted, that means that I'm considering this toxic. I'm feeling the urge that I feel is to reject you and say, ew, what you're doing is not okay. I reject you. And everything in our body is going to communicate that. That's probably not constructive towards the life that you want, towards the dynamic that you want. You wouldn't want anyone to perceive you as toxic and then react in the same manner. That's just an example. But so what's constructive is calming down because we cannot behave assertively if we are under stress, if we are aroused. We just cannot do that. So we really have to work on becoming comfortable in this dynamics, in being uncomfortable. And I like to compare to fighting because, as some of you guys may know, I fight. And what it is you do this type of exercises are doing the pat work. You start working on the pats because whenever you get into the real fight, you know how to write the right combo. It becomes a reaction now. It's a habit. And the more you fight, the more relaxed you are within the fight, the less you are reactive, the less you are flinchy, the more comfortable you are in that environment. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to be comfortable in aggressions, comfortable with yelling. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you get comfortable just with conflict because humans are going to have conflict, two different perceptions, two different people having different feelings, different thoughts are eventually, even within yourself, you have right and left brain, and you constantly have inner conflict of I want to do this, but I feel like this, but and knowing how to navigate that and being more comfortable, being open about it, being comfortable seeing the duality of things and being able to validate, see the other perspective, the other person's perspective, know and sharing what you feel, what you need, and being open that they might judge it, they might want to invalidate you, and you just being like, yeah, I know that's what you think, that's what you feel. I respect that, and I still feel this way. I know you might be disappointed, and this is my need. How do we work with this? Would you like to work with me? Being comfortable is with conflict is what makes healthy conflict because you can actually approach it and you stop avoiding, you stop fighting the other person or dismissing the other person. That's what we want to achieve. We want to be able to turn to each other and hear each other out. And for that, you have to learn how to be relaxed through the process and honor your boundaries. That doesn't mean they have to stay. If they're yelling or anything, that might be your boundary. I don't want to be in any conversation if someone's yelling at me. Very rarely, I would be comfortable with that, but I don't. So I will enforce my boundaries and I will communicate them before I leave. I will say what I'm comfortable with, what I'm not comfortable with, and what I will do. It continues, but I would love to keep this conversation going if done with without yelling, with calmness, because that is just what I need to feel comfortable, and it is what it is, right? The other person has the right to say no to that and not want to have that conversation with me, and that's fine too. It's respectable. So that is the only way that we call it stress inoculation, right? If we try, that's a good exercise for you to like just try to visualize just being comfortable and being more relaxed, being able to tell someone what you feel, what you need, what you want, and inviting them, making a positive request, inviting them towards the relationship dynamics that you would like, and seeing if that's what they would actually like as well, or what type of relationship dynamics they would like, and see if you can work out together that win-win. That's all that this is about, trying to figure out that win-win. And for that, you got to let them know what your win is, not what you don't want them to do. And so I made this whole thing into a framework. That's my method. I called it the Mimi method. And simple words, first First is just mindful awareness. You gotta know, you gotta be mindful about how you feel. You gotta be aware of your needs. Then, then the I is for turning towards. You really have to be intentionally, just very, very intentionally empathic with a person. You have to understand their world in order to know what their win is and how you can communicate your win, knowing what their win is, so you can try to take the conversation that way. The third part is about just knowing what matters most to you and communicating that, you're meaning what matters most to you. And that is achieved by first knowing it. So first being aware. So that's the first step, right? And then we only communicate it until the third step because we first have to know theirs. We have to let them know that we have their best interest in mind first before we even speak our minds. That's just to make the message easier to get through. And at the end is just making an invitation or just informing them about what you are going to do. Because sometimes you can make a lot of invitations towards the life you want, and they're just not willing. They just don't want to take that invitation, and that's okay. So you just inform them, like this is what I'm going to do, and whenever you're ready, I'll be over there. Or if you're done with that relationship, like this is just it, and you let them know kindly and firmly, and encourage them to do the same. And that's about it. So if I made a free document, if you want to read more into this, it is in the description. So feel free to go and download it and share it even because through this, for me, if more people have a healthier home and they just become comfortable with healthy conflict and they know how to address their needs and they know how to ask other people, it's just making relationships better. It's just going to make a better world. I have three little girls and I want them to grow up in a world where they can just solve their conflicts because it's going to happen. We're humans in a way that's healthier, in a way that's better for everyone instead of just, attacking each other and just everyone's so defensive nowadays. And this is the way to heal that. So if you can just share it to the world and make it and practice it. Remember, this is a practice. This is like doing your pad work every day. It's not just for big conflict. It's for small little conflicts or small little interactions that you have with your partner, with your coworkers, with everybody, with your kids. So this is going to make everything better. So please go download it. If not, feel free to email it, send me an email, and I'll shoot it to you. And yeah, so also don't forget to follow, subscribe, and let me know what you think in the comments. And I will see you next week for the next webinar. Okay, Commander out. Have a nice day. Bye bye. Oh, and let me see. Uh, I will check your comments. There's a ton of comments. So I will check your comments and this will give me information to make you your next webinar. Okay?